decent, like
Decent? Yeah,
bare bones, like
bare minimum.
um so yeah, like so I wanted to ask you like what do you expect from like the housing system as a renter, and like what do you think the landlord's role is like in
Um,
housing?
yeah, I think the landlord's role should be like I think fundamentally it should be to provide a safe and affordable to the point where like nowadays I don't even expect to get my full like not even close to my full deposit back when I most of the time I leave the place in better condition than it was like even given to me. Like literally I rented from Aggie Town from yeah, Aggie Town. I think that's what they were terrible too. And they were the one with the big house and it was super old big house by City Park and they were so terrible. Like it was in such bad condition when I got it and they go, "Well, 4 boys lived here before you guys. So what did you expect?" And I'm like
Yeah.
and I was so offended. I'm just like I should not have to I literally had to like get on my hands and knees and like bleach the bathtub. Like it
uh,
was so gross and I was just like, "Seriously?" And they were like, "We can show you the receipt of the cleaning company." And I'm like, "I don't care if you paid for a cleaning company. I care that your cleaning company did not do a good job. Like, get it straight."
mm,
Like, if you paid for one or not, this was not clean. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And so and then same thing with maintenance. Like, every time I call about them not like giving notice or about them not wearing masks or whatever it may be, they were just like, "Well, we'll have to reach out to the or supervisor or I don't even remember her title, like the lady who managed all the maintenance people." You know what I mean? And I'm
Mhm.
just like, you can reach out to this one lady all you want, but it's never changing every time you say the same thing. And so clearly something's not working. And you know what? That's what I confronted Kale when he came over for the in, post inspection thing. Like he was checking in to look at everything and make a list and stuff. And he goes, I go, "Why was none of this told to me?" Because, okay, so it was starting to get cold. It was like October, the beginning of October. So I was in the basement. It was starting to get chilly, right? And I go, I can't find a thermostat like anywhere. I'm really confused. And it's starting to get cold. He literally looks at me and goes, "I have the key." And I go, "The key?" And he goes, "Yeah, it's upstairs and I have the key. It's in a lockbox." And I was like, "The thermostat is in a lockbox?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I said, "So I have to ask you to come change the thermostat." And he was like, "We keep it at a reasonable temperature." And I was like, "I just said I'm starting to get cold because the heater hasn't even been turned on." And I swear the heater was never turned on when I lived there. I moved out October 12th. I literally didn't even move my furniture out. I took an air mattress to this new place I have, and I slept on an air mattress for a week because I didn't have time to move. And I'd rather sleep on an air mattress than have bats flying around and live in a cold basement. So it was just ridiculous. And then I look at him and I'm like, was this not told to me when I signed a lease? And he said it should have been. And I said, it wasn't. And he said it should have been. And I said, well then, like, you need to go see who told me, who was giving me a tour, and tell them to do better next time or something. Like, you need to
Yeah.
tell people these things. And then he goes, "Well, who was the person that gave you a tour?" And I described the person because I don't remember his name. And he goes, "We don't have anyone of that description, and we never have." And I was like, "Really? Like, don't lie to me." And so then he tried telling me like he didn't even know who told me that. And I was like, "You really can't even figure out who scheduled a tour with me?" Like, they could not keep track
Yeah.
of anything. And then I asked him, another thing I asked him was to tell me the last time it was sprayed because I kept getting huge spiders, like huge spiders. And so, and he told me they'd cover spraying it. And so I asked, when was the last time this was sprayed? And I asked him that like months ago. And I confronted him to his face and I said, are you going to get back to me about when it was sprayed last? And he goes, we haven't been able to figure it out. I'll have to check like some papers or something. And so I look at him and I said, if you can't keep track of anything, it says something about your company. I said, it's either that you have too many properties and you can't, or you need more managers to manage all these properties so you can properly manage them. And he was just like, he had nothing to say to me because he probably knows it's true. They either have too many properties so they can't like actually put care, or they just don't care. That's my theory, is they just don't care and they just want the money. That's why they have so many properties. They do the bare minimum and they just make their money. And that's what it is. Because I paid $500 in my unit. The other 2 units in that house paid $500 as well. And so that house, they're getting $1,500 a month to put bat houses up and let the bats just make a home of the place. Like, what the heck? That's not cool.
Yeah.
And so, it's just like, there's a fundamental problem, I gotta say. There really is within the company. And I think that's how a lot of the companies, what they have in common, I guess, is they don't really care about the tenants that much. That's just what I've experienced, is they just like do the bare minimum that they have to do their job, and it's usually subpar, and then they get their money.
Yeah.
And so I think there does need to be mandatory code inspections. What's the problem is that like owners or landlords see it as like us just making them do a bunch of work and like spend a bunch of money and blah blah blah, and it's like, no, it's ensuring people have safe places to live. Like, no one's gonna know just off of a 5-minute tour if you have a bat infestation. You're not gonna know when you go look at it in broad daylight for a 5-minute tour. You're not gonna know there's fire separation issues within the house. So if my unit caught on fire, the whole house would go in flames. The people above me and Dana, the girl that lives above them, the whole house would just go in flames because they didn't have proper sealing like for fire separation, So those are things you're not going to know unless a inspector comes and looks at all those little things, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're just 18-year-old college students. They don't have any professional experience looking at this stuff, and they have all that pressure from roommates and whoever to just get a house. You just want a house, you want a place to live. Exactly. And I know for me personally, like, I kind of expected, wherever I live, some places were nicer than others, but no matter what, there'd be decent housing, no flooding, no mold, and no animals roaming the house.
Seriously.
So I guess that's what I expected. And that's what I think is pretty reasonable, just decent housing. And do you think it's right for, let's say, like the city to like, or the county to mandate mandatory rental inspections?
Yeah, Lawrence has it. Like, seriously, like, come on. It's not, honestly, I think there needs to be more regulation on even just like these shady companies. I almost said shady A companies because they're so shady. If you own, or if you live in a place that is owned by someone that you don't rent from, like AKA Frontier, but owned by like Mr. Hallman, and then you look into the company, they are so, you cannot find anything like on the actual owner. Like, seriously, you look into their company, you can't find anything. I worked for the census for a while, and so I know how to, like, you can call all these city people and find out like mailing addresses, phone numbers, all kinds of names, spouses' names. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, when I had to do that to figure out who actually owned my house, and you should not have to call the register of deeds to figure out who. That's another thing. A landlord actually has an obligation, I believe, legally to tell you who your property is owned by, because I had to call the deeds to figure out who to sue, and they didn't even show up. I sued DIH LLC, which if you try to find anything on them, it's super hard, but you can find tax documents, wink, wink. They are shady.
Yeah.
And they didn't even show up. Frontier just showed up. But I had to call the Register of Deeds to find out their mailing address to sue them. Like,
yeah, that's ridiculous. That's just
right?
so much work.
It should be public access. Like, you should be able to Google that stuff. Like, it's just so, I've just realized that it's like, it's a bigger issue in this town, and there needs to be some kind of regulation. I just think mandatory code inspection is a good place to start.
Yeah.
And
'Cause
then
it's like,
further, like, look into these big companies